Hello guys, so I'm doing the intro after I already put together the enclosure. I just wanted to say this species is not very common and I've yet to see a video of it go up on YouTube on how to care for them. I've cared for this species in the past. It's a generally intermediate species. It's not too easy, but it's not too difficult to care for. When you have really basic enclosures like you would dubias or something, they tend to not really survive that well. So they do require a little bit of setup. So here's the enclosure. I'm not going to show too much of it off until we actually get into the video and start building it. You'll see the full enclosure at the end of the video. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. Hello guys. Today we're going to be building my red-legged cockroach colony. I've already put these two colonies together for some other species. If you want updates on them, you have to check out some of the other videos on my channel. So to get into it, these are red-legged roaches. These guys are very small nymphs. You can see one run around right there. I have about 5 or 6 of them. They're just all deciding to hide at the moment. This species ranges from East Texas all the way over to some pockets and localities over in Florida. They're not a difficult species to care for, but they're definitely not an easy species. They need a little more setup than dubia roaches and stuff like that. I'd say more of an intermediate kind of species to keep. So I'm going to put the enclosure together. I have the 10-gallon right here. Let's get started. Alright, so I have the 10-gallon right here. For this species, they don't really need a lot of room, so I'm giving them way more than they need. This will allow for them to grow, mature, breed, and I can raise several generations in here before I need to split the colony because it'll get too big. So, first thing I'm going to do is add the substrate. You want to be careful with what kind of substrate you use. You can either make your own, or you can go with some of the pre-made potting soil from like Home Depot or Walmart. Whenever you go with pre-made potting soil, you have to be really careful not to get any that have chemicals or plant growth hormones or anything like that kind of stuff in it. So no pesticides, none of that. You want to read through the ingredients and just make sure that it's an organic, pesticide-free kind of stuff. So right here, I have some stuff that we picked out a while back. It's worked pretty good so far. So this is the substrate I'll be using. It's the Expert Gardener Potting Mix. It does have, I think, either perlite or vermiculite, something in it. So that's what the white specks are that's inside the bag. That's not going to hurt any of the animals at all. All it does is retain moisture. Okay, so I'm not going to pour too much in. All I want is for it to make a good layer. So right here, it has about an 1.5 inch layer. So it's not too deep, not too thin. So something like this will hold a decent bit of moisture and stuff they need and slowly allow it to go out throughout, or allow the moisture to come out into the air for humidity for them throughout the day. So it has wood chips and stuff and other soft woods and oak and stuff in it already, so I'm probably just going to leave it at this and not add any other stuff to it. So as far as this goes, the substrate, this is pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is start adding stuff for them to hide in. Okay. So right here I have pine with some moss growth and everything else on it. For most species, I would not recommend pine, as pine is a kind of a deterrent for insects. But this species of roach is found very commonly in pine forests, so it's not really something you need to worry about. These nymphs are actually collected from a pine forest near me, so I don't have to really worry about it hurting them or kind of just making them uncomfortable in their own enclosure. This species, in that pine forest, you can see them quite often and pretty much everywhere. but as soon as you leave the pine forest, you're not going to see any at all. The pine will be good decoration. It'll look pretty, moss growth and stuff on it. So it will be fine for them. So with this stuff, I'm going to prop it up in different ways. So I'm just going to arrange this stuff until I find a good mixture that I like, a good kind of combination, and then pack the dirt around the sides of the wood. Okay, so that's all said and done. They can climb up, hide on the bark, all that stuff. Usually during the daytime, they'll hide up in trees or inside dead logs and stuff like that. Them being a wood roach species, I'm pretty sure they're going to utilize this bark quite a bit because they don't really like to hang out on the soil too much unless it's during their breeding season or if they're just searching for food in general. So I'm going to add leaves and other stuff. You can use like oak leaves or other softwood. These are magnolia leaves. These I collected in the same area that these nymphs were collected. They are used quite often in living vivariums and stuff like that. That's kind of what this is. It has live moss, plants, bugs, all that stuff. And at the end, I'm going to throw in some springtails, and later on, in a week or so, I'll be adding a bunch of isopods. So this will be a living vivarium. These are really good because they are easy for a lot of bugs to digest, and they break down naturally over time. So they put some good nutrients and other stuff in the soil, and it just adds to the looks. So these here, I'm going to kind of break up a little bit and just throw them around the floor of the enclosure. So I have the leaves and stuff in here. So now I'm going to throw in some chunks of palmetto leaves. These were also found in the general area that they were collected in. So I'm just going to grab a good handful like this. Here's a good size one. I'm going to break it up a little bit and kind of crunch this, and they'll go through and they'll eat the little crumbled pieces, and this will also help them be able to hide themselves and run around the enclosure and feel comfortable. So I want a little bit more in here, so I'm just going to start adding a little bit more magnolia leaves. Pieces I drop. Go for one more leaf and I'm going to call that done. Alright. We have all this kind of mixed up in here. So I'm just going to use a small bowl. I'm just going to sink it down into the soil, and with this will be for their water gel. Even though I plan on keeping this enclosure pretty moist and they can get most of their moisture from when I spray it in the morning, I'm still going to leave them a constant supply of water gels just because they may dehydrate or something, and it just really helps them out. Okay, so after putting the water bowl in there, just because of how small these roaches are, I'm going to get a little leaf kind of thing and just set it up inside the water gels. So just in case they get stuck in the water gels, they can crawl around, find the leaf, and then climb out without any issues. Alright. So then I'm going to clear a little spot next to it, and I'm going to go find another water or food bowl. So for this one, I'm going to use a simple water bottle cap. And for their food, I'm just going to give them a mixture of my homemade roach food diet. This stuff is a mix of low-protein dog food, some kind of pollen stuff that I got online, and some high-quality fish food. This stuff is ground to a very fine powder, which will make it super easy for them to eat and digest it. So on top of that, they're going to have all the leaves and fungus and stuff that's growing on this wood. So this is pretty much set up. I'm just going to spread around some of this stuff, mix it up a bit more, and try to cover as much of the floor of the enclosure as possible, just because I know the species does not really like to be on the floor itself or in the substrate itself. So everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and add the roaches. So this is the setup. I might go through and add a few more oak leaves and stuff like that. This is pretty much mimicking the environment that they came from, except for all the pine needles that are everywhere. The only reason I didn't want to add a whole bunch of pine needles in here is because I already have some of the pine tree bark, and with the other roaches in the room, I didn't want to add more pine because pine is a deterrent for quite a few species. A lot of the roaches that are in here do not come from pine forests, so I wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable with different smells and stuff like that. So I'll probably add a few more oak leaves and stuff like that, some more things for them to climb on, just so they can get up off the floor of the enclosure so they're not in the substrate and stuff too constantly. So this guy is one of the nymphs that I captured, but he will not be going in the colony. You can see they are black with kind of orangish red legs. As they get older, those legs will be a lot prettier. There'll be a darker red coloration, kind of like a strawberry or a dark cherry red. The wings are very pretty on these guys. They're just as black as the rest of their exoskeleton. So I don't have any adults to show off in this video, but I will be posting photos of them and their adult stages on my Instagram once they actually start maturing. So the enclosure is up on the shelf. Let's take a good look at it. So I have the water gels over here with the little bridge for them to get in and out of it. Because the bowl is smooth, they're going to have a hard time climbing in and out. I have the homemade roach diet that I talked about earlier in the video. You can see how green the moss is. I'm going to be putting a LED light on top that will be put on a timer, and it'll turn off when it's nighttime, when these guys will be most active. I'm going to spray it about once every 2 days or so. The soil has really good moisture retention, so I don't have to worry about it getting too dry. I'm going to put a lid on top of it, and I have a a plastic coating kind of over the lid so the light can pass through, but it keeps the humidity inside. So these guys require a temperature between 75 to about 95 degrees to breed. So as nymphs, I don't have to keep it that high. I plan on keeping them around 75 degrees. Once they get a little bit older, I'm going to bump the temperatures up. This species is most active at night, so heat being on the hotter side is not too necessary. I will probably keep them around the 80 to 85 range and leave it at that. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this video is useful. There's no videos that I know of on YouTube about how to care for these guys. They, again, not an easy species, but not a difficult species to keep either. They just need a little more setup. I personally think this is a really beautiful species, pure black with bright red legs. Thanks for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see y'all in the next one.